Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody, wherever you are and wherever time you are logging in. And welcome to today's lecture. This one is focusing mainly on chapter 14, where we are talking about the general senses of the body. And chapter 15 is going to be on the next lecture, where we start talking about special sense organs in the body. So, welcome. Previously, we have been talking about the nervous system. We have talked about the brain and the spinal cord, and we mentioned that the brain and the spinal cord, both of them, they form the central nervous system, and that their main function is to receive information coming from some part of the body. They figure out what that information means, and they make decisions appropriately. So what we are going to talk about in this chapter are the structures that perceive information from outside, either from outside of the body or inside of the body, and convert them into a form that can be transmitted to the brain or the spinal cord. Remember, the brain and the spinal cord, they receive information via the sensory neurons, and they send information outwards, they send information out through the motor neurons. And so the structures that transfer information to the sensory neurons are the ones we are going to be talking about in this lecture. So the ability of the body to perceive stimuli, to perceive what's going on in the environment around you is called sensation. You can hear me talking, so you are able to perceive sound. You can see me when I'm in class. You can look around, so you are able to do that because you are perceiving light, environmental stimuli in the form of light. When you sit on a chair, you can feel it because of some specialized structure that perceive that sensation. You can feel cold, you can feel hot, you can feel pain. All those kind of things are because of structures that are able to convert that information into a form that can be transmitted to the central nervous system. And it is the central nervous system that is making the decision to say, this is pain, this is light, this is sound, that is pressure, and so forth. So in summary, all those things are referred to as sensations or perceptions, conscious awareness of stimuli received by sensory receptors. And it is those stimuli, structures that are able to convert environmental stimuli into a form that can be transmitted along the sensory neurons and taken to the brain or the spinal cord for interpretation. Those organs are referred to as receptors. And receptors are of different types according to what they do. We have receptors that can change perceived light energy and convert it into an action potential. We have those receptors that can perceive pressure and convert that to action potentials. We have those that will perceive sound and convert that to action potentials. We have those that can perceive pain and convert that to action potentials. And all those potentials are transmitted to the brain or the spinal cord, and it is the spinal cord or the brain, that is the central nervous system, that will figure out what all that information means and make the decision based on that. So that is basically what a sensation means. So we have different types of senses in the body. And we group them in general into two major types. General senses are senses that are found all over the body. They are able to perceive different kind of stimuli, such as temperature around you, whether it's hot or cold, pressure, pain, all those kind of things. They are found all over the body. Whereas spatial senses are sensations that are found within a very localized area. So we have, for example, structures or receptors that are found in the nose, and all they are doing is detecting smell, or found in the mouth and they are detecting taste, or found in the eyes and they are detecting light, or found in the ears and they are detecting sound. Those are what we describe as spatial senses. So when you're talking about differences between the sensations, general senses are found all over the body, and spatial senses are found only within specialized areas in the body. When you check general senses, we say they are found all over the body. We have two different types. We have those receptors that perceive information mainly about the body, around the body, and the environment. Those that are, for example, sensing how hot the environment is or how cold it is, pressure, and so forth. Those are called somatic receptors. Then we have senses that are monitoring information about the inside of our bodies. Those that are measuring, for example, the blood pressure, temperature of the blood, concentration of ions, acidity, those kind of things that are inside of our bodies. We call those kind of sensations visceral senses, and the receptors that are perceiving that information, we call them visceral receptors. So those are the different types of receptors. This figure summarizes all the different types of sensations, or all the different types of senses. It is in your book, and if you can fully internalize this information, you will know everything there is to know about this chapter of senses. So starting at the top there, you have the word senses, and you have two major types of senses: general senses and spatial senses. And there is a description there about what each of them means, where in general senses, the receptors are found all over the body, and in spatial senses, you only find them within a very localized area. And of the general senses, you find that they are divided into two groups. The first group are those that are found on the surface of the body, in the skin and in the muscles, monitoring things like temperature, pressure, pain, stretching of the muscles where they are attached to the bones. They are found in the ligaments, where two connective tissue that is holding two bones together. Those kind of areas, we call those ones somatic general senses. And then we have those senses that are found monitoring what's going on inside of the body. As I've said, things like temperature, pain, blood pressure, those kind of things, those are called visceral receptors. And for each of them, you have examples there. So the somatic general senses examples are touch, pressure, proprioception, that is measuring stretching of the muscles, temperature, that is heat or cold, and of course pain. And visceral senses would be things like pain and pressure and so forth. I have outlined the spatial senses there because they are the subject of the next lecture, spatial senses. So talking of receptors in general, we name them in different ways, just like we have been talking about naming all the other things in the body. Every time we are talking about anatomy and physiology, because of the complexity of the systems, we try to organize different organs and tissues in a way that we can understand them more. And so as far as senses are concerned, we have two different ways of classifying them. We classify them on the basis of the type of stimuli, meaning what turns those receptors on. Because like I said, the receptors are designed to perceive an environmental stimuli and convert it to an action potential that can be transmitted through the sensory neuron to the central nervous system for interpretation. So on the we classify receptors on the basis of the type of an environmental stimuli that turns them on, or we can classify them on the basis of their location. Are they found on the surface? Are they found inside of the body? Are they found within the muscles? So those are two types of criteria: type of stimuli or their location. Now, on the basis of this type of stimuli, we have different types of receptors listed there on the on the slide. Excuse me. And I'll tell you here that the name of the receptor tells you what kind of stimuli turns that receptor on. So mechanoreceptor, these are receptors that are turned on by mechanical events, mechanical changes. So things like compression. When you sit down, the chair you are sitting on presses on your skin and causes mechanical changes in the receptor. If that mechanical change causes that receptor to fire off an action potential, send a message to the central nervous system, that is going to be a mechanoreceptor. If you stretch, if something is pulling on your skin, and that pulling of the skin causes a receptor to be triggered and send an action potential to the brain, then that is going to be a mechanoreceptor. So things like touch, pressure, proprioception, hearing, and balance, they all require physical changes or pressure on the receptor to fire an action potential. And so we call those mechanoreceptors. Chemoreceptors, as the name suggests, these are those that are turned on by chemicals. They require a chemical to make a change. So receptors like smell and taste, those are turned on by chemicals. When you breathe in and the air goes into your nose, any chemical that is in the air that you are breathing in is going to trigger the receptors of smell in the nose, and those receptors pick up that chemical, and then they are changed. They trigger an action potential that is sent to the brain, and that is interpreted as smell. When you eat food, put food in your mouth, chemicals that are present in the food are the ones that will trigger action potentials in the receptors found in the tongue and on the inside of the mouth, and they send off action potentials to be taken to the brain, and the brain interprets whatever it is as different types of tests that we shall talk about today. So those are chemoreceptors. They are turned on by chemicals. And so using the same kind of terminology, therefore, thermoreceptors, they respond to changes in temperature. You know, thermo means temperature. You know, like thermometer is an instrument for measuring temperature. So thermoreceptors are those that are turned on by changes in temperature. Photoreceptors, the key word there is photo. You know, like a photograph, and something photo has to do with light, photosynthesis, and those kind of things. So a photoreceptor will be a receptor that is turned on by light. And so receptors that will be respond to light are referred to as photoreceptors. In our case, we find these ones in the eyes. Nociceptors, these are a special kind of receptor that is found all over the body. And these are receptors that will respond to extreme conditions. they will respond to